All right. I completely forgot what video I was recording. So, this video, I'm going to hop right in. I was tagged twice to do this. First by Shelly. M. Reeds, she tagged me, and as well as Shelly Swearingen. And so, ladies, I'm finally doing it. This is a tag, essentially, going over big books that are absolutely worth it, in your opinion. So, in my opinion. And I selected 5, and I've added a 6th in that a big book that I have on my shelf that I still haven't read, but I need to get to. And by big book, we mean 800 plus pages. And so I made sure to stick to that 800 page rule plus. Let's jump in no particular order. I read this last year, Lonesome Dove. You got it. You got to read it. This is one of those books I feel that if you are considering reading it, just read it. This was one of my top reads of 2024. It's a chunker. My edition is 885 pages long. It is a Western, but it doesn't matter if you're into Westerns or not. It's just a good story. I don't care. Like, a really good story is a good story regardless of the genre, and will appeal to people who don't typically even read within that genre. And this is one of those books. Lonesome Dove is, you have this group of men put together, and they go on a cattle drive from Texas to Montana. And the relationships between those men, the quirks, their faults, their good qualities, their flaws. There's a lot of, and everything that happens between Texas and Montana. And I have a whole review on this. It is cinematic. Yes, there is a movie. I haven't seen the film, but this is just, especially once you get past the first part, I would say, especially like that first 100 pages, which is McMurtry setting up all these characters. It really gets going once this cattle drive really starts, and you just really connect with all these characters. And of course, in a big sweeping novel like this, you're going to have deaths. You're going to have some stuff happen. And as a reader, you're like, why are you breaking my heart? But it's worth it. It's worth it. I liked, this is such a masculine novel, and I mean that in the best way. But I just think this is worth all 800 pages. I have a review on this. I will link it below. One of my favorite books of all time. I also have a review on this. Do I have a review in, I have or will have, I have a review on all of these books minus one, but I do have a review on this, The Brothers Karamazov. Again, I have a pushing 40-minute review of this book. I'm just not going to go through all of that. We'd be here for an eternity. But to me, The Brothers K is absolutely worth it. It is this edition. Oh my gosh, my edition is so stained, you guys. There's food stains here because it took me 8 months to read it. When I did read it, I was reading it over breakfast, lunch, dinner, and I just savored it when I read it. My edition is, not including the appendix, 985 pages long. It's a whopper. And there are times, like in most large books have periods where they kind of drag a little bit. But when you get to the end of this book, there's just something in which feels like an accomplishment. Dostoevsky writes this narrative of these 4 brothers. You can debate that, but there is a half brother here. And they each also, you could see them as representing 4 different types of philosophies. You have a very religious brother, you have an atheist, you have someone who's kind of maniacal and unhinged, and so they say that when you read this book, there's just a brother that you will connect with. I connected the most with Alyosha. And in true Dostoevsky fashion, you have all of these questions and conversations on religion, theology, political systems, political ideologies, sociological ideologies, all centered around the fact that these 4 brothers, their father has been murdered, and one of them did it. So, and there's this epic court case in the end. There are these really interesting, there's always interesting female characters in a Dostoevsky novel. And it's just, The Brothers K is described as one of those novels that just epitomizes the human experience. And I'm going to leave it there. This can be an intimidating novel. Not only is my edition pushing 1,000 pages, it's a Russian novel, which you're known for being maybe making you work a little bit more than some others, but I definitely think it's worth it. Another Russian novel. Whew, this is hard to hold. I do have, you might already know, just me saying that, I have a review of this as well. This is going to be a short video. I have a review of this as well. Tolstoy's War and Peace. My hands, and I do have small hands, so take that with a grain of salt, but I look at it. It's the size of my head, Tolstoy. It's something about that Russian cold that they were producing bangers like this and blunt objects. This is a blunt object. War and Peace, my edition, is, I'm not including the notes or any appendi, 1,358 pages long in this Penguin edition. War and Peace. I'm trying to figure out where to start. Again, I will link my review below. Let me pull up how I summarized it myself, just real quick, real fast. Believe it or not, at the time, this only took me 6 weeks to read. I don't know how I had the motivation to do that, but I was reading a little bit different at that time. It's hard to summarize a novel that is over 1,000 pages long. There's just so much that goes on. It's a novel that does span several years of the characters' lives, set during the Napoleonic Wars. The novel does highlight what's happening on the war front. So there are the war bits in this novel, but there are also this social front as well. And we do have actual historical figures that make an appearance, like for example, Napoleon does make an appearance. And those war sections are paralleled with upper class Russian social life. There is a large crew of characters, as you can imagine. It's a Russian novel. This is actually uncomfortable to hold. I'm not even going to lie, and I'm no weakling. Okay, this is uncomfortable to hold. And you have, though, some central characters that you could boil this novel down to: Pierre, Natasha, and Prince Andrei. He was actually my favorite, as cynical as he was. And all of these characters are interwoven, and Tolstoy uses this setting and these characters to discuss life and love and war and death and the social forays of Russia at the time. Of course, it's a Tolstoy. He's going to philosophize, and he philosophizes on history and how is history told and why is it told the way that it is. And I really do think that it's worth the effort. I think there are two ways to approach reading this novel. You just go for it and you hone in on that novel, or which is what I did, and I just hammered that thing out. Or what some people do is they will, I'm going to read 10 pages a day, or I'm going to take a year to read it, and they parcel it out in a way that makes sense for them. I just decided to just go all in. If you like the Russian novel, if you like a novel that has lulls, highs and lows, as far as the plot, if you like a novel that philosophizes, take your time, and it is worth it. Also, it's just one of those novels in the literary canon that is referenced a lot. And it's the same like with the Brothers Karamazov. When novels like this are referenced so much that if you consider yourself an avid reader, especially of the classics, in literary fiction where novels like this get referenced in other works, after you read a novel like this, after you read a novel like The Brothers K, it gives you context that I think is invaluable. And I'm going to leave it there. Again, I have, you hear that thunk? I have a full review, and I will link that below. One of my favorite pieces of contemporary fiction, but is considered Marmite. Either you like it or you don't. Q-Teen84, look at how much I annotated this. I hammered this out and read it in 4 weeks in the summer, in July of 2023. I couldn't put it down. This was addictive to me. For me, I have a review of this as well. I will also link this below. This is part love story, part mystery, part fantasy / magical realism / you feel like you're caught in the Matrix because you have these two parallel worlds 1984 and Q-Teen84. And my edition, you can purchase this as 3 separate volumes, or you can get it all together like this. I actually don't like this cover. I don't like any of the covers for Q-Teen84, but here we are. I picked this because I didn't want 3 different books. This edition is 1,157 pages long. So I went for some chunkers in this one. For me, worth every single minute. Every single page, every single word. I loved it. I could not put it down. I could not look away because it asked the type of questions that I like to read and I want in my literature. There are some philosophical questions, questions of control. And if you're a fan of the movie The Matrix in any way, it has that vibe. Like, what is reality? What version of what we see in front of us is the truth? Is it the truth? Or there is an actual reality behind the scenes that is actually hidden for most people? Is truth stranger than reality, or is it what you're being presented with the truth? What, again, all these questions of what is truth. And also, when paths are meant to align, they will align. And you have this unrequited love story of these 2 people who went to school together as young people, and their paths and their cross, and they're reconciled as adults 20 years later. So it's just, I could make an entire playlist of the music that is just mentioned in this novel. I just enjoyed it. Again, I have an entire review. I think it's worth it. And this is one of those books that when you read it, it asks more questions. It leaves you with more questions unanswered. You don't get Murakami doesn't tell you what to think. He poses it and lets you come to a conclusion yourself. I really need to get back to Murakami. That's the only Murakami that I've read thus far, and I need to get back to him. The next Murakami that I read will be Wind Up Bird Chronicles. Another book that I recently finished, and I don't have a video review on it yet. It's going to take me a while to get my thoughts together on this one, but Books of Jakub by Olga Tokarczuk. Another blunt object, but this is, believe it or not, not the longest. My edition is just under 900 pages long of the Fitzcarraldo. And, again, I don't have a review of this book yet. I just annotated to oblivion. I haven't even gone through my annotations yet as of this recording. But in essence, this is taking place in the mid-18th century. And you have this man of mysterious origins named Jakub. And he ends up, Jakub Frank, who ends up traveling all over like the Ottoman Empire and Habsburg with this brand of religion. You could even maybe call it an ideology, a cult that he has put together in his followers. And he goes throughout this part of Europe during this time period in the mid-18th century. He's considered a heretic. He's being revered as the Messiah by those who follow him. And I'm looking down here, and he combines the Talmud with the Bible, with the Quran, and some other beliefs. And it is twisted. It's a little unhinged. Mind you, this is also taking place during the Enlightenment. So it feels a bit mystical. And actually, while I was reading it, it reminded me a bit of Lubvana. But why do I think that this almost 900 pager of my edition is worth it? There were periods of this book that I felt dragged a little bit, but there were other periods but for the most part, I was very fascinated by this novel. I was a bit intimidated by this novel. I did buddy read it with my friend Joanne, but the themes of this book are dense. I'm not going to lie. Tokarczuk did her research. She's making references to, Jewish mysticism and the Kabbalah, and she's pulling on the Bible and the Quran. And if you're not familiar with some of those texts, even if you are, some of this is going to go over your head. But this is not one of those texts where you need to understand all of it. And I didn't make myself understand all of it. I definitely understood the biblical references more than the Talmud or the Quran. But man, this book is twist. Jacob gives me the ick, as he should. He's icky. Kept me reading really is Olga Tokarczuk's writing style. I thought she was actually very accessible. I was not expecting this book to be accessible language-wise. Her writing is not as dense as I anticipated, even though the topics may not have been the most easy to digest, simply because of the ideology and the theology behind it, right? I just thought it was worth it. You just have to take your time. It took me about 8 weeks to read this book. I didn't rush it. I think that for me, this book was best 10 to 20 pages at a time, and that was it. I really had to pace myself. I have pool water. I took this book poolside one weekend, and it got soaking wet because I was reading it poolside, and my swimsuit was soaked, and I was reading it, I'm leaned back like this or whatever. You can see that here. The pages got wet. But I just like the way that Tokarczuk writes. I think she's a great storyteller. This is my first Tokarczuk. And I definitely plan to read everything that she has now published in English and they continue to publish in English. But I think that if you in particular have questions on, or you like books about language and how, because there's so many cultures and people from different parts of Europe in particular that are wrapped up in this novel. If you are a person who is intrigued by languages and how the language that you're speaking dictates how you're going to express yourself, or how you can or cannot express yourself based on the grammatical rules or the vocabulary available to you in that language, you will like this, and it is worth the effort. If you are into theological questions, you will like this book. If you are into how are cults formed? Why are people drawn to these charismatic people, thus giving them this type of authority that Jacob Frank ends up having or getting? How do people end up into these weird, dark sects, as in SECT? This is a narrative that will interest you and will be worth the effort. A novel that I have not read, but I did pull off my shelves for this tag, is Hilary Mantel's The Mirror and the Light. This edition, which is Mahusive, comes in at 875 pages long. This is the last installment of the Wolf Hall trilogy. I've read Wolf Hall. I've read Bring Up the Bodies. I think I read that maybe 2021, 2022, or 2023, somewhere in that time period, and just have not gotten to this book yet. And I remember Shelley said it was worth it, and her big books that are worth it tag also matches the nails. I just have not gotten to it yet, and so I've taken this off my shelf and stuck a pin in it for 2026, because I need to conclude this trilogy, because the first two books were immaculate, and I've heard that this is actually the best one out of all three. So, Tudor fiction, but from the perspective of Thomas Cromwell. So I already know this is going to be worth it. I just got to get to it. Anyway, those are my picks for the big book tag of big, chunky 800 plus pagers that are absolutely worth your time. And of course, some of these books are not going to be everybody's cup of tea, like QC94 or even Books of Jacob. But they were for me. I enjoyed them. What are your 800 plus pagers that you think are worth the effort? Thoughts and comments below. Also, feel free to like, subscribe, leave me a comment, and follow me on Instagram, where I post all of my book reviews first, actually as written reviews. That is all. I've been talking for a long time. It's time to sign out. Bye.